Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
1. Introduction. A very big flood has happened in Southeast Asia. Heavy rain fell for many days without stopping. This strong rain caused terrible floods and landslides in several countries. The countries with the most damage are Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Malaysia. This is a very serious disaster for millions of people who live in this part of the world. The situation is very bad. The number of people who have died is very high and very sad. More than 1,200 people have lost their lives because of the rising water. Many more people are still missing, and their families are waiting for news. Millions of people have been affected by the floods. Their normal lives have stopped, and everything has changed for them. The floods have caused a lot of damage everywhere. In many towns and villages, homes are completely underwater. People had to leave their houses very quickly with nothing. Some people climbed onto the roofs of their homes to stay safe from the dangerous water. Others held onto trees for many hours to wait for help to arrive. The water came so fast that many people could not escape in time. Important roads and bridges are now broken. This makes it very hard for help to reach the people who need it. Some places are cut off from the rest of the country. Farms are also flooded. The water has covered the fields where farmers grow food for everyone. This will be a big problem for a long time. The floods also caused landslides. This is when a lot of wet mud and heavy rock moves down a hill very fast. Landslides have destroyed more homes and have blocked many important roads. Now in some places, the flood waters are slowly starting to go down. As the water leaves, people can see how much damage there is. It is a very sad situation for everyone. People are looking for their family and friends. They need help right away. They need clean water to drink and safe food to eat. It is the beginning of a long and difficult time for everyone in these areas. The true size of this disaster is now becoming clear. It is a terrible tragedy for many families. 2. The big storms. The terrible floods began with the weather. In Southeast Asia, this time of year is the monsoon season. The monsoon brings heavy rain for many months. This is a normal part of life for people in the region. The rain fills the rivers and helps farmers grow food for their families. People expect the rain and are usually prepared for it. But the rain that came this time was not normal. It was much, much heavier. It fell for days without stopping. This happened because the usual monsoon rains were joined by something much more dangerous, powerful tropical storms. The first of these big storms was called Cyclone Senya. A cyclone is a huge, spinning storm that forms over warm ocean water. It has very strong winds and brings torrential rain. Torrential means the rain is extremely heavy and falls very fast. Cyclone Senya was especially unusual because of where it started. It formed in the Malacca Strait, a narrow sea between Malaysia and the Indonesian island of Sumatra. It is very rare for a cyclone to form in this location. This powerful storm moved across the area and mixed its power with the monsoon. This dangerous combination is why the rain was so catastrophic. It caused terrible floods and landslides in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. While Cyclone Senya was causing problems, another powerful storm appeared. This second storm was named Cyclone Ditwa. It traveled across the Indian Ocean and hit the island nation of Sri Lanka. Just like Senya, Cyclone Ditwa was very strong. It brought more powerful winds and incredible amounts of rain to a different part of the region. Having two major storms at the same time made the disaster much larger. It meant that millions of people in 4 different countries were all facing a similar emergency. Scientists have an explanation for why these storms were so destructive. The Earth's weather is changing. The water in the world's oceans is slowly getting warmer. Warm water acts like fuel for a cyclone. It gives the storm more energy, which helps it to become bigger and stronger. Think of it like putting more gasoline in a car to make it go farther and faster. Also, warmer air can hold more water vapor. The air is like a giant sponge. A warmer sponge can hold more water. When the storm releases this water, the rainfall is much more intense. This is why the storms brought so much rain and caused such big floods. 3. Hard times in Indonesia. The big storms and heavy rains were a disaster for Indonesia. The island of Sumatra was hit the hardest. In many towns and villages, the water was very high. It covered houses, schools, and shops. The water also flowed over large farms, destroying the plants that people eat and sell. In the hills, the wet ground became soft and heavy. This caused landslides, where a lot of mud and rock moved quickly down a hill, covering everything below. It was a very dangerous time for many families. The news from Indonesia was very sad. The government said that at least 604 people died because of the floods and landslides. It was a terrible loss for the country. The situation was even more difficult because another 464 people were still missing. Their families and friends waited for news, hoping they were safe. This was the worst natural disaster in Indonesia since the big earthquake and tsunami in 2018. That event killed more than 2,000 people. Now, people remembered that difficult time as they faced this new tragedy. The president of Indonesia, Prabowo Subianto, went to see the damage. He visited North Sumatra, one of the worst affected areas. He saw the broken homes and talked to the people who lost everything. The president said that he hoped the worst part was now over. He told the people that the government was working hard to bring help. The main job, he said, was to get aid to everyone who needed it. But helping people was not easy. The floods and landslides broke many important things. Roads were blocked by mud or completely washed away by the water. Bridges that connected towns fell down. In some places, telephone and internet lines were not working. Because of this, some areas were completely cut off. Rescue teams could not reach them by car or truck. It was a big problem for the people who needed food, clean water, and medicine. Stories from survivors showed how scary the floods were. Some people had to climb onto the roofs of their houses to escape the rising water. They waited there for many hours, sometimes for days, hoping for a boat or a helicopter to rescue them. Other people held onto trees to stop the strong water from pulling them away. The search for the missing people continued, but it was a slow and difficult job for the rescue workers. 4. Water in Sri Lanka. The storm named Cyclone Ditwa brought very heavy rain to Sri Lanka. The rain caused big floods and problems all over the country. It was a very difficult time for many people. More than 148,000 people had to leave their homes. They went to special safe places called temporary shelters. The government had to act quickly because the situation was so serious. The president of Sri Lanka, Anura Kumara Dissanayake, saw how bad the floods were. He told everyone that the country was in a state of emergency. This special announcement means the government can use all its power to help people and fix problems. The president also asked other countries for help. He knew that Sri Lanka needed support from around the world to manage this big disaster. Many people were in danger and homes and roads were damaged. In Colombo, the capital city, the water was very high. The floods were worst during the night. The rain finally stopped, which was good news. People hoped the water would start to go down soon. In some parts of the city, the water did go down a little. A few shops and offices started to open again. But in the low parts of Colombo, the streets and houses were still full of water. It was hard to know how much damage there was. The government was getting ready for a very large relief operation to help everyone. Many families had to escape from the rising water. One woman named Selvi, who is 46 years old, lived near Colombo. On Sunday, she had to leave her house. She carried 4 bags with her things. She said, "My house is completely flooded." She was very worried and did not know where to go with her family. She just hoped to find a safe shelter. Another person, a man named Hasitha Wijwardena, lived in a town north of the capital. He said the water was gone from his house, but a new problem started. "The house is now full of mud," he said. Cleaning the thick, wet mud was a very hard job. He asked for help from the army. The government used soldiers to help rescue people. Military helicopters were sent to fly over the flooded areas. They looked for people who were stuck on rooftops or in high places. The helicopters took these people to safety. They also dropped food and clean water to people who could not leave their homes. It was a dangerous job. One of the rescue helicopters crashed on a Sunday evening. President Dissanayake spoke to the whole country. He said, "We are facing the largest and most challenging natural disaster in our history." He knew everyone was scared, but he gave them hope. He promised that they would fix everything that was broken. He said, "Certainly, we will build a better nation than what existed before." This was the worst disaster in Sri Lanka since the big tsunami in 2004. 5. News from Thailand. The big storms did not only affect Indonesia and Sri Lanka. Southern Thailand was also in trouble from the same weather system. The heavy rains caused big floods in many towns and villages. Sadly, 176 people died in Thailand because of the rising water. One of the worst affected places was the city of Hat Yai. For many days, the water in the streets was very high. Now the rain has finally stopped and the flood water is slowly going down. This is good news for the people there. Many people had to leave their homes and go to safe places called evacuation centers. Now they are starting to return. About 80% of the people from Hat Yai have already gone back to their houses. They want to see the damage and begin the difficult job of cleaning. When they arrived home, they saw a terrible situation. Their houses were full of thick, brown mud and dirty water. Many of their things were wet and broken. Cleaning up will be a very big and long job for every family. The government of Thailand is working to help. The Deputy Prime Minister, Thamanat Prompau, visited Hat Yai to see the problems himself. He saw how bad the situation was for everyone. He ordered workers to fix the electricity and water services immediately. Many places had no power, so the government gave out solar lamps for people to use at night. The government is also offering money to help families recover. People who lost their homes can register to get 9,000 baht. This money can help them buy food and other important things. There is also a special loan available. Families can get a loan of 100,000 baht. A loan is money that you have to pay back later. But this loan is interest-free, which means people do not have to pay any extra money back. This will help them to repair their homes and buy new furniture. Across southern Thailand, the big cleanup has started. The country next to Thailand, Malaysia, also had problems from the storms. The floods hit the northern part of the country near the border. 3 deaths were reported in Malaysia. 6 soldiers help people. After the terrible floods, many people needed help very quickly. The governments in Indonesia and Sri Lanka decided to send their military to help. Soldiers have special training and equipment that can be used in disasters. Their job was to save people and bring them important supplies. In Indonesia, the government sent warships and hospital ships to the areas with the worst damage. 3 warships carried food, clean water, and medicine. 2 hospital ships were sent to act as floating hospitals. They had doctors and nurses who could care for many sick and injured people. Airplanes were also used to bring aid to places that were difficult to reach. The rescue work was very hard. The floods and landslides destroyed roads and bridges. Many roads were covered in deep mud or blocked by fallen trees. When bridges collapsed, it became impossible for trucks to deliver supplies. Because of this, some villages and towns were completely cut off. No one could get in or out by land. It was also hard to talk to people in these areas because phone lines were broken. This made it difficult for rescue teams to know who needed help the most. Helicopters were very important for the rescue work. They could fly over the blocked roads and broken bridges. Soldiers in helicopters looked for survivors from the air. They found many people waiting on the roofs of their flooded homes. Some people had climbed into trees to stay safe from the high water. The helicopters flew down to lift these people to safety. They also dropped packages of food and water to communities that were isolated. The work was dangerous for the soldiers, too. 1 military helicopter crashed during a rescue mission in Sri Lanka. The disaster was so large that the countries needed more help than their own soldiers could give. The government of Sri Lanka made an appeal for international aid. They asked other countries around the world for help. They needed money, supplies, and rescue experts to support the work. The soldiers were brave and worked hard, but the challenge was enormous. They played a very important part in the first days of the response, saving many lives in very difficult conditions. 7. No school today. The floods changed everything, especially for the children. Across the region, tens of thousands of young people could not go to school. The daily routine of learning and playing with friends stopped. For many, their school was now gone, or it was a different kind of place. The storm did not just damage homes, it also damaged the future for many students. In Indonesia, the problem was very big. On the island of Sumatra, Reports said more than 1,000 schools were damaged or closed because of the high water. Some school buildings were completely broken by the floods and the strong winds. Classrooms were full of mud and water. Books and desks were washed away. In other places, the schools were not broken, but they were not used for classes. Instead, they became emergency shelters. Families who lost their homes came to live in the classrooms and school gyms. These schools were now safe places for people to sleep, but they were not places for learning. This also happened in Thailand, where many schools had to close. The water also caused a very big problem for food. Before the storm, there were many farms in the region. People grew rice and vegetables in large agricultural fields. These farms gave food to the local towns and cities, but the flood waters covered everything. The green fields turned into brown lakes of water and mud. All the crops were destroyed. This meant there was no new food to eat and no food for farmers to sell. Many farmers lost their jobs and their homes at the same time. It was a terrible loss for everyone. Now, the biggest problem for families was the daily struggle. The rain stopped in some areas, but life was still very difficult. Finding clean water to drink was a challenge. The flood water was dirty and not safe. People were hungry because the farms were destroyed and the roads to bring in new food were blocked. Every day was about finding food and clean water for their children. It was a simple need, but it was the most important thing. For many people, this was a harder fight than the storm itself. 8. Why the Earth changes. After seeing so much damage, many people ask why this disaster happened. Why were the storms so strong? Why was there so much rain? The answers are connected to big changes happening to our planet. The Earth's weather is not the same as it was many years ago. Scientists explain that the world is slowly getting warmer. This is often called climate change, and it is a big reason why storms are becoming more powerful. This change is caused by human activity. The oceans cover most of our world, more than 70%. When the planet gets warmer, the oceans also get warmer. Warm ocean water is like fuel for a storm. It contains a lot of energy. When a storm forms over this warm water, it can use that energy to grow much bigger and more powerful. The cyclones, Senya and Ditwa, became very dangerous because they had this extra energy from the warm sea. This made them more destructive than normal storms in the region. The total number of storms each year has not changed, but the storms that do happen are often much stronger and cause more damage. Climate change also affects the air around us. Warmer air can hold more water inside it. You can think of it like a bigger sponge that can soak up more liquid. When this warm, wet air rises and cools, it makes clouds and then rain. Because the air can hold so much more water, the rain that falls is much heavier. This is why the monsoon rains were not normal. They were extreme. This huge amount of rain fell for many days, causing the terrible floods and landslides in Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. The ground could not take any more water, and rivers overflowed into towns and cities. This disaster is a very difficult lesson for everyone. It shows us that our world is changing in serious ways. The weather is becoming more extreme and less predictable. The floods across Southeast Asia are a clear warning to all of us. We cannot ignore these changes anymore. We need to understand that events like this might happen again, and they could be even worse. This is not just a problem for one country, it is a problem for the whole world to solve together. So what can we do now? We must think carefully about the future. People and governments need to work together to protect our planet. We also need to be much better prepared for these kinds of disasters. This means building stronger houses, schools, and roads that can survive floods. It also means having good plans to warn people when a big storm is coming so they can move to a safe place. By learning from this sad event, we can work to protect people and save lives the next time a big storm arrives. The future depends on the choices we make today.